I sit next to John. He likes to tell his story. Like,
Did you say comments like gangsters? Is that what you said he was talking about? Like while they were talking?
Your class was over the other day. Like the problem I said, tell me why are we behind the scenes?
One day I see Jim or something.
I was already shocked the other day when he was like,
days, and he's like, and like, you know, his hair is back and stuff. I'm like, no.
Okay, sure.
He's got a different vibe going.
we gonna do what we gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got common probably start.
Yeah, so I just had a little one bowl because I was like, oh! Cats up!
And I was like,
Very good. I was going to sit over here and I was like, okay, I'll try to sit here.
Yeah, it was
there.
I just thought it was really good.
on their commentaries, like, I know where
They did not write that.
You did not see that?
No.
It was probably okay. So cats up. Good. Just so you know, I did not sit in a segregated format that was like just point that out. I know Jim's gonna come here and point it out. Jim's gonna come here. Tomorrow he's sitting in a row.
Like, that's like dancing next to Robin.
Oh,
It has nothing to do.
yesterday, came late. And that's why she was like, what is it? What is it? Dr. Ray just stopped in the middle of the conversation because Ron was saying
No, I know, it was laughing.
Yes.
You missed it. I'm like,
y'all must have did it at the same time or something. She
Well,
told me.
because Rob and I, obviously, we wear our emotions conversations, just like, and I knew me all the time, and I was like, there's this other being and stuff, and it's not mine.
She said it so.
I need it. You saw me after everybody goes, oh, yeah. I'm like, she's like,
I mean, I can't tell you.
Robin,
They're allowed to not name.
so he's one of course is like, oh, where's your
I'm like, God, it's so hard.
Well, I just said add on at least that next thing.
And it's show.
And it's hard to like when I'm at home and I'm like, okay, and I have all the and I PC, it's hard for me not to do the little people that are sitting right in front of me.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I'm like, well, and I do sell services.
Take that
my house. gotta stop everything and be like, okay, hold on, I'll get you a different.
Let's work on it.
Yeah, you screw into a scale.
And that's true.
That's the
I work trying to help the children who I'm studying about.
dining table. I have free flow. I have floating chips. Of course, I have floating chips. And they're nice. Some bottles of wine and things like that. But what I do is
maybe
I make sure that at least two of the screws actually go into a stove. And then the rest of them I use dry wine.
usually all in one sitting.
I cannot make a hole bigger than a so I can make it bigger than a
Yeah.
so all I do is unscrew the drywall screws. Because I've already moved the screws and then I get the pink it's like filler putty and you just fill in the holes. And then they'll paint. I'll get this from IKEA. I didn't get this picture from IKEA, but I want something like that. Or something like
Kind of like.
this That's just all completely flat. So I was love this one too. Something like this because I have a small fireplace. So I'm gonna do like a fireplace there and then do my TV. I like modern entertainment centers. Designs for
Right.
And then ask them, of course, they said, no, I hadn't seen it, but I can see it by their face. But what they were saying is, I haven't seen it where I'm at, but I know that you're not related to what's happening.
I got this from my house.
I was gonna use, I think that other one.
This will probably be something.
That one where it's
I like the lights. 2-foot drink glasses.
It's all about this one.
I'm not saying that sweet.
Yeah. You went to I went and spoke to her. That's why when I was
Hey, I just got
And I'm gonna be white.
Have like please tell us the perception.
I've seen yours.
Yeah, the room you can never go in. So many people had like this white girl, and we looked in the room as we walked past. I hate that. I said, remember, I'm not having any plastic on my purse. I just really couldn't stand that.
Caramel.
But it was yes, I definitely would say that.
It's interesting, but it's not. Yeah.
That's the thing, is like, I feel like. Okay, first exposure.
I told him the other day that's the best thing.
I thought you want to do it in a way that's like.
I told him that's the best thing.
I can't do this, like, because you're so smart, but at the same time,
So that's
Because when I was on Facebook, your name was
I just lived on the floor.
because it was like add this person as a friend, and I'm like,
Oh, no, that's me.
okay. Because I was like, but it feels you on the cover instead of
you're like dazed and confused.
Mommy!
5 years.
I'm not gonna ask
I mean, he's.
I'm in the defensive.
You are being.
they have.
Take my seat.
So I'm trying to get the whole.
Who's that in the room?
Y'all ready? Y'all ready?
We ain't got started yet.
So we're trying to get them to apply. Just let me know.
Technology.
I'll stay on that.
Welcome everyone to our series tonight. Thank you all so much for coming. Cohort 3 had asked us to be a part of their holding this forum. And so it's always wonderful to be able to share with urban education PhD students. I gush all over them all the time because I'm just so appreciative that there are people spearheading, making the kinds of changes, either the classroom, the teaching institutions, the policies that will uplift and support a real large segment of the population coming through the education system, and that's urban youth. And as Paulette Fair here with Kepler Institute, welcome. And I would like to have the cohort introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what we're going to do tonight. Before cohort starts, because when they start, it's theirs. When KI, please start, and we'll go around this way since the cohort's up that way. And we'll introduce ourselves so that you'll know who you're talking to. Okay, Ethan.
Hi, I'm Ethan Evans. I'm a volunteer here with KI Media and also part of the Indy 10 organization here in Indianapolis and a student teacher at IFUI.
Hi, I'm Alvin. And I work here at KI, do some technology stuff as well as some mentorship, stuff like that. So tonight I'm running the live stream. So if you have people who wanted to be here that couldn't, the live stream is on live.kepler.org and it's brought to you by KI Media, which is our enterprise that does technology, websites, live streaming, video work.
Awesome.
So should we tweet and Facebook all of that?
Yes, please. The Twitter handles are up there. So our name on Twitter is @Kepra, that's KGPRW, and @KI Media. So tag us in there, and the hashtag is Race Equity for the series. Tonight's the beginning of our Race Equity series.
Cool. So I'm Mimi. I'm in America this year. I'm working on urban agriculture projects with the Purdue Extension Office. I'm going to take this opportunity to make a really quick plug that we just opened registration for a free course on planning for an urban farming or local food business. I have flyers about it that I'll be handing out tonight. The application is open, and you can find it by going to the Purdue Extension Office's website. So I work on that, and my work brought me to Kepra, but I just found it to be personally a place that I connect to really strongly, so you can find me here a lot of the time.
I'm Ben Abel. I'm a student at Butler University. I'm a music student, and I just started coming here recently, but I was really interested to hear that this discussion is going to be taking place, so I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say.
Rachel McIntosh, this is my daughter Cheese.
Cheese.
We come up from the south side to be here for this as long as we can handle it.
I'm Imhotep. I'm with the Kepler Institute also. And I want to give it the piece on the urban farming. Please check it out. If you're not into urban farming, you know some other folks that might be interested in taking a free class. Please visit whatever that information Mimi mentioned earlier. I want to just add an additional thank you to the Urban Ed program, Cohort 3 specifically. We, KI, have had opportunity to be engaged with all of the cohorts that Professor Sherrick has had the insight and courage to try to engage the academic community with the local community and find ways to provide a place for that kind of engagement. And we hope that we have a space that provides an opportunity for some authentic dialogue around very complicated issues. Tonight's issue, at least this night, is about education. And I've had opportunity to visit their class a few times, and they tend to be very spirited, like to argue, fuss, and those are my kind of folks. I'm hoping some of that happens tonight.
Paula here, also here at Kepler.
My name is John Harris Laughlin. I'm an IPS graduate, retired IPS teacher. I studied 3 years here at the Kepler Institute. And let me point out, indeed, these kinds of conversations go on here, but there's no other place in the city over the last, I've been here all my life. No one's having these kinds of conversations. Nobody, not even at the university, because you're here. And the Urban League, and the NAACP, and the churches. Who is? But KI. So my hat's off to KI.
Hi, my name is Mark Maxey. I would be in cohort 2, but I've had a hiatus journeying in academic research, doing a little bit different than you guys. And grateful to be here. Have experienced many things with KI. And this event was the intellectual intersection that I've been waiting for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now you think about all the intersections throughout the city, and all the cars that are going by every day. And now you see the intersection happen. Bam. Been a while.
I'm Brianna.
I am William Nimitz. Nice to meet you guys. I am an engineer at Kepler Institute.
I'm Glenn Anderson II. I've been coming to the KI Institute off and on for the better part of the year, I guess. My wife is a member of Cohort 3. Glad to see these conversations happening as well. I'm a firm believer that everybody just does what they can within their own sphere of influence that brings out racial equity, the world gets better. So academic is one place, unity is another, but overall doing things that we can do, it'll get better.
Naila Ali, libertarian and member of NORML, NORML, National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. And I encourage everyone to get the latest issue of Sports Illustrated. Muhammad Ali is on the cover, and there's a good article about him in Sports Illustrated, the October 5 issue.
I'm Summer, and I'm a member of the Urban Ed Cohort 4, and I'm excited to hear what everybody has to say tonight.
I am Kelly Hanna. I'm also in cohort 4 or C4 that we call it. We're explosive. And I teach at the Excel Center, a new spot on the south side. It's a high school for any adults who want to come back and get their high school diploma.
I'm Erin Sanborn, and I'm also a member of the C4 Urban Ed PhD cohort. And I'm currently a middle school teacher in IPS.
Summer, what do you do?
Oh yeah, what do you do, Summer?
What do I do? Sometimes I play the guitar. Currently, I am teaching F200, which is Teacher in the Self, which is predominantly a freshman class for students who think they would like to be teachers, where we explore their own identity in relation to teaching. Thanks, John.
My name is John Turner, academic advisor and IBYT instructor. We teach a class of Black males over at Ivy Tech Community College, and I'm part of cohort 4, the Bongo.
Like the C4.
Exactly.
I'm Andrew Getza. I'm in the second UES cohort, former IPS middle school teacher and current research assistant at IUPUI.
Hello, good evening. I'm George Okante. I work with Purdue Extension here in Marion County.
All right, thank you all so very much. First of all, I want to thank the Kepler Institute for inviting us here. We are the C3, the third cohort of the IUPUI's Urban Education Doctoral Program. We still feel that Jim regrets admitting us into the program because we are a bit of, we consider ourselves somewhat of the rebels of the group. But I like the fact that we have a unique bunch with unique personalities, and we're very forward thinking, and I think we all have appreciated what we've learned, and we've also appreciated the partnership that Jim has established with the Kepler Institute. It's one of the reasons why we're all here today. So my colleagues asked if I would begin also somewhat facilitate our time tonight. And so one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to introduce ourselves, and we're going to speak from this whole issue of race and education and just the achievement gap. But we're going to all speak from our own different angle. So we're going to give a few minutes of a summary about what we think in our perspective, and to some degree of research interest, if we've gotten that far, because we still have a little ways to go before we conclude. And then what we would really like to do is open it up for discussion. We'd like this to be very informal. We feel that co-creating knowledge in the room together is going to be much more beneficial to all of us as opposed to just simply speaking. But one of the things I shared with I like to share when I do these kinds of things is, one, that we respect one another's opinions and perspectives. But secondly, is that we make sure that we build on one another's ideas. And that makes the conversation a lot more richer as opposed to trying to hurry and get your own thoughts out, just totally negating what the previous person has said. So when we do that, it really kind of helps to enrich the experience. So my name is Myron Duff, and they asked me to go first. I'm not trying to be facetious. So my name is Myron Duff. I'm actually a product of the IPS school system. I had probably the worst high school guidance counselor in the history of America. Didn't have any idea about anything regarding college, even though my family encouraged it. I went to Northwest High School and graduated in 1987. And at the time, it was probably the worst high school in the city. And but found a way. And fortunately, there were people along the continuum that helped me to get to this point academically. So I work actually at IUPUI. I work in community engagement office. My specific responsibilities include developing programs for the Indianapolis Urban Core. IUPUI used to develop continuing education programs, but they only fit the elite financially. And now we're able to do that for those who aren't as privileged as others. And so we're excited about what we're able to do. So with that, my angle in regards to the achievement gap that I'm going to be speaking to is going to be consistent with the message that I've been trying to share with my colleagues on IUPUI's campus, which is this huge disparity of challenges that African American men face on the college campus. I was one of those people that worked at IUPUI at the beginning. I left for a while and then I came back. When I left in 2000, it was an open admissions college campus. By the time I returned in 2006, discussions were beginning to change the emission standards, and they were more traditional emission standards, which we know for the most part culturally biased. And so my challenge with the campus has been that if we continue to move forward with these same emission standards, our African American men are not only going to suffer at the hands of the police and other inequities of our society, but the education system and higher education is going to continue to be an institution that continues to support inequity, even though I think the thought is that it does not. And so I have some data that supports the challenges that African American men face on campus, such as our graduation rate for African American men over a 6-year period is 7%, 7.7%. The highest it's been over the last 10 years is 8.2%. And it falls even lower in terms of, if you look at predominantly white students, their graduation rate is about 78%. The challenge with those numbers are multifaceted. There are just so many issues that are associated with that. And I know there are the excuses. My concern is the excuses are that they're kind of, the African American men are blamed for those numbers. But I think clearly we understand that they're otherwise. And then finally, one of the things that the campus does is for those individuals who do not meet the traditional admissions requirements, they are encouraged to go to the state's community college system, which is Ivy Tech. And the numbers for African American men that transfer from Ivy Tech to IUPUI are abysmal. As a matter of fact, they are, 3 years ago, it was 150. The last count that in terms of African American men that transferred from Ivy Tech to IUPUI was 150. That number this year is 48. Wow. So clearly there are some enormous challenges in the achievement gap. And so one of the things I would like us to discuss as a part of my angle on this particular topic is what are some, we know the challenges, but what are some ways that we can work with alongside our African American men, as opposed to telling them to pull their pants up, which I do not think that's the problem. But what are some issues that what are some things that we can, we as a community can do to help to narrow the achievement gap of African American men in higher education, particularly in Indianapolis, which is where we actually are. So, at this point, I'm going to ask Sherman to jump on board, because I think his work ties into some of the things I do at another level. And then the ladies, they're going to go last. And this, okay, this is by choice, not because my mama didn't teach me different.
I thought I had at least 2 more people. So thank you, Mark. Well, I'm Sherman Woodard. I'm in cohort 3 here. I'm a director of student services of the guidance department at Ben Davis High School. I'm a father of 2 daughters and a wife, and a dog named Logan, 150-pound German Shepherd. Wow. Equity is at the heart of my existence, and seeing inequity is what drives me. I spent a lot of time being mad at systems that were designed to create inequities, and now I'm on a mission with my colleagues to discover new ways of empowering all people and bringing God-given potential out of all individuals. I've been in the school system my whole life. I've realized that I was accepted into a school system, a white system in Wayne Township. I was an athlete, funny, smart guy, I think, my wife agrees. But I was accepted into that system, and then seeing what's happened to many of my friends and family members that were not necessarily accepted into it for whatever reasons is what's really motivating my life. Last time I shared, I talked about when I was at Purdue,
I saw a video where dogs were trained to open a cage. They hit a lever to open a cage, and then they would the experiment would introduce shock into the equation. And so a light would come on and let the dog know he's about to get shot. The dog learned to hit the lever to get out the cage, so he'd hit the lever to get out the cage. And then they implemented an insurmountable task. So the light would come on and the dog knew shock's about to come, and the dog would hit the lever, the cage went open. After a certain amount of trials, the dog stopped trying to get out the cage. It stopped hitting the lever. It went in the corner and braced itself. And what motivates me right now is that we have a community, in my opinion, that's in the corner bracing itself. And we need to create opportunities and scenarios for education to let them out the cage and fly and succeed. But as far as inequities in education, I mean, Black males is my particular focus at every angle. There's enormous inequities. I mean, overrepresented in special ed, suspended, and expelled, absorbent rates. The graduation rates are terrible for Black males. Taking AP courses, these are things we're learning in my 10th class, but these are things I witness on a daily basis as well. We've overcome some of these inequities in the high school, but the part that's most concerning to me is that I see Black males have been taught that they are less, and then they're believing that, and that's very concerning to me. I believe we got to create programs and opportunities of leadership for African American males to help lead us out of a crisis that we're in.
Before our ladies continue, I'm pretty sure you appreciate the briefing. I'm going to ask that our newest guests introduce themselves to the group, just so we'll know who everyone is here.
Shauna Thompson.
Leroy Hickenbach. Reverend John.
Thank you very much.
My name is Sherry Moore, and I'm the, by day, the program chair of journal studies at Ivy Tech Community College. And I'm also a instructor at Ivy Tech. I teach there as well as occasionally teach for other universities. When we talk about educational inequities, my focus area is kind of based on my beginning, which is, for me, education became kind of an escape, kind of became a way out for me. I got pregnant with my daughter when I was 16 years old. And I remember my high school guidance counselor telling me that college was not for girls like me. So that actually gave me a drive to prove her wrong. But it wasn't just the high school guidance counselor. It was people who were also the same color as me, as well as other people telling me that college was not for girls like me, that I should develop a trade and go on with my life, that life was ruined, that that was an end point for me. However, what my mother told me was that you're going to finish high school because I said so. And when Dorothy May said something, it was going to be. So I completed high school, but I also realized that I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Military or the college were my choices. So I didn't want to go to the military, ended up going to IU. I began to develop myself as a student. And I realized that standards had been lowered for me when I was in high school. When I got to college and all of a sudden the bar was set to where there were certain things that I was required to do, and nobody really cared that I was Black. Nobody cared that I was a single parent. Nobody cared that I was female. What I mean by that is, in high school, I would have teachers who truly thought they were very well-meaning, but would say things like, well, it's okay if you get a D. Well, that's okay if you do that like that. Well, not everybody can learn geometry, so that's okay. But we'll go ahead and give you this grade because you're really nice. You're really polite. You're a good person. So we'll just go ahead and do that. And then I got to college and realized I didn't know math. Tested in the pre-college level math. It began to kick in that I was done a disservice. That if I had been challenged to actually learn the material versus just being passed through, then I would have been better prepared for college. That was something that kind of stuck with me throughout undergrad. And then when I began to work in the education system after I got my master's, that's a message I began to give to other students. It is not okay to set lower standards. And oftentimes it's done so undercover that we don't realize it. Whether they're lower standards at work, whether they're lower standards in school, that type of discrimination is something that can lead to you being behind in your career, or as I tell some students, being walked out of the door. So I'm going to tell you the truth about your educational journey. I'm not going to be the person who smiles at you and tells you your D's were okay, and then one day you're not going to be here anymore. So those honest, frank conversations are often not had because there are very well-meaning people who will look individuals in the face who they feel are not as competent or as capable as others, or who they feel sorry for, or who they've lowered standards for. And they will tell those individuals, for you, that's okay. Oh, you want to be a nurse? Oh, you got a 2.3? Oh yeah, you should still apply. No. So that's where my passion lies, and those are conversations that I have with students. And I love working with all students, but I particularly notice students who are from socioeconomic disadvantaged backgrounds, students who are first-generation college students, and students who are African-American and Hispanic. I see a clear pattern with them sometimes being treated differently and having the standards, the academic standards, lowered for them by some individuals. It is something that is a disservice and I think needs to be addressed. And it's something that you can address individually, but trying to address it system-wide is really creating a paradigm shift with faculty members and instructors and having conversations like, because this person is Black, are you saying they can't learn this? Well, perhaps you should change your teaching style, or perhaps you should put these other things in place, because when you say can't learn, is it that you don't want to try to help this person figure out how to learn? Because those are different things. But getting people to be honest about their hidden biases, I think is really important in education, because if you don't get people to be able to own up to it, they'll say that, it's we have an equal and a level playing field, and we just all know that that's not true.
So last but not least, I'm Jantina Anderson, also a member of Cohort 3. My story is a little different, of course. During the day, I'm a human resources manager at Carrier Corporation. And actually my entire career, I've worked in human resources. So many people ask, well, why are you in the program? What interest do you have in education? And as I sat here and listened to my peers talk about their personal experiences, and I don't think that I've told many of you this, and I definitely haven't said it in front of my daughters. But there were some personal experiences that I had going to school that impacted me, but I didn't necessarily know the significance of that impact until later as I look back on things. But the reason why I pursued this program is because of my daughters. In 2012, when my husband and I were looking for elementary schools for my oldest daughter, Eliana, there were some news reports regarding young Black girls and their treatment in schools. Two in particular stood out for me. One was a school in Ohio, I believe it was a charter school, had released their dress code policy in the middle of the summer. to prepare their students for the upcoming school year. And in that policy, because of the changes they made, they basically disregarded Black female students who chose to wear their hair a certain way. So they said Black female students could not wear twists, dreads, puffs, locks, etc., and attend the school. So me being who I am and having two girls, I thought to myself, I said a few choice words, but this is crazy, and they can't do this, and this is in Ohio, this is next door. I have to do something about this, and I sent an email to my husband and said, I'm going to write a letter, and who do I need to talk to? And I've just gotten to I'm going to go take care of it mode. And then I did a little more research to see if this had happened anywhere else. So I thought, well, maybe this was just a one-off. And a school I came across a little girl's story, a little girl in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, who probably had her hair very similar to my daughter's with the braids and beads. And she was playing with it in the classroom. And the teacher had asked her to stop just multiple times. The little girl didn't stop, so the teacher brought her in front of the classroom and cut her braid off and said, now, what are you going to tell your mother? And she kept her job. So again, the emotions fueled, and I got to do something about this. This is crazy. I'm on this earth. I have two daughters. I wish somebody would touch my children that way. I have to help, them and other little Black girls. So that's where my focus is. I'm focused on African American females in the school system. And the more that I've dug into the topic, the more that I've researched, I've really started to, comprehend all the issues and complexities and the dynamics of their existence in school. And it's hard at times because we don't necessarily pay attention to them as an individual demographic. We look a lot at all Black students, and we talk a lot about Black males. And I'm not saying we need to disregard our Black men, because trust me, I love our Black men. But we do need to provide more attention regarding our Black females and their experiences. The stories that I told you are not unique. They've continued to happen since 2012. Some of the literature that I've read, they talk about Black girls being expelled at a greater rate than even Black males. They are disciplined and expelled at a rate that's 6 times greater than their white female counterparts. They're not graduating as quickly. White females are graduating on time at about an 82% rate nationwide, whereas Black females is about a 66% rate. When we look at teachers' attitudes and perceptions of them, it's just as negative. They're not willing to learn their names. They're not willing to even engage with the students. There are quotes that speak to this. And so it's very sad. They don't relate to the Black females. And so that's my focus. I plan to do something about that and make a difference.
So fortunately, the Urban Ed program has helped to channel the fire that you probably all see up here. So I'm grateful for people like Dr. Chalmers and for Jim and their support of us through this program. And in addition to some of the things that we have read, we've all, as you see, have done our own research just because we want to be that much more prepared to address these things, not only so we can write our dissertation, but also so that we can address some inequities that are very personal to us. So given a lot of things that you've heard us say here, we would love to know what kind of insights or questions you might have for us in regards to the education achievement gap of African Americans in this country, and even more specifically in this city. So now the floor is open. Somebody start the snowball off.
this is just a general question for everybody, but when did it become the same thing? If you're poor, you're automatically dumb. You have no smarts whatsoever. You're not. And why did we let it continue? Because this child is poor, they're black, so they can't operate on the same level as someone that's got money, quote unquote. And they, so just because they think this child has more economic resources, they're smarter. But why did we let that happen? And how did we get started? Well, I don't know how that started. Anyway, that's just a question, just a comment or something.
Anyone feel comfortable jumping on that?
Well, I mean, I feel like that's the purpose of our school system, though. I mean, it's to sort people. So if we come in on a poor track, the poor track equals the dumb track, the slow track, the don't graduate track. We come in on the rich track, that equals the honor, the gifted track, and so then we can put those people into jobs that are according to their God-given ability, according to the schools. We design tests that support their language and speech patterns and ask questions that's familiar with their Maloo. I don't know if the school system has ever been any a different design, especially an integrated or desegregated school system, if it's ever been any different intent than that, personally.
Along that line, and as you're saying about tracking, you all are in the education system. What about the I'll call them teachers' colleges? The teachers' colleges. I mean, the children. I mean, you're 15 years old, and your hormones are shooting every which way. How do you get to school in the morning and know what you need to do to matriculate the system if you don't already come prepared? So what about these professional people standing in this classroom? I know they have too many children, but is there some changes being made in the education of teachers? Something about brains, what teenage brains are like, or how these black kids or the kids not being paid attention to or going to go out into the world and come back to fight them? What's going on in teachers?
I think there are some changes being made as far as teacher preparation is concerned. I think that we're trying to make the teachers a little more culturally sensitive and aware. However, I think the biggest challenge is it's one thing to gain textbook knowledge, and it's another thing to have experiential wisdom and knowledge. And so the majority of teachers today are white females, and many of them have not had experiences with the diverse populations that we have today in our schools. And you can talk about issues that your children might face. You can talk about how you might approach a child if this situation occurs. But until they experience that, until they have, I guess, more of a tangible interaction in that regard, it's very difficult for them to relate or to address. So I see that as one of the biggest challenges, but I do believe that there's at least more discussion around how do we combat that, how do we make them more aware, how do we prepare them. And there are, at IUPUI, there are courses that help with that as well, that address that.
Are they mandatory or just extras that you can take credit?
I think it was interesting that this point is coming up because I think we have a few teachers over here that probably can speak to that more appropriately. And then maybe Dr. Chalmers, maybe you can talk more about the curriculum design in the School of Education that can answer Ms. Pauline's question. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I just know that.
I think a lot of white females, specifically white females who have not grown up, you were just saying, John, you've met people at the college level, like white students who say he was like the first black person they've ever talked to and gotten to know, as opposed to just seeing in the peripheral. And so I think a lot of white teachers come in with that deficit mindset of I'm gonna go in and save the children. So immediately they're going in with this deficit mindset because they've seen movies like Dangerous Minds or like, you know, these movies where it's like, and coming from Brownsburg where I grew up and there wasn't a lot of diversity at the time at all. I don't know, I think I had a little bit difference in my family because I grew up with a little bit of diversity within my family, but in general, you go in and it's kind of like, I don't know, I think there's culture shock that can be good. And I think some people react and they're like, this is stuff I need to know, and you dig in. And I think for me, I was like, I need to challenge myself and I need to question my thoughts and like get into this if I want to be a good educator. And I think some people get in there and get in defensive mode and get in and like react because it makes them uncomfortable. And I think you can go one way or the other. And I think if with good, hopefully good programs, that uncomfortable feeling like gets them more engaged in realizing their own, like, you know, their own thought process and wanting to turn in a certain direction. And I like IUPUI's focus in that. Like the secondary education program at IUPUI right now, like the very first thing, the very first cohort, they're in an IPS school the whole semester immediately. So they're not going in there for a day and experiencing something and perpetuating their stereotypes that are already existing in their minds. They're in there and then they really challenge it and they talk about it as opposed to just going in there in it anyway. So I think there's programs trying to change it, but I think there's still a lot of work. I've spoken at like Oakland City University, which is like a Baptist small college, and I went there and I was talking not like about race, but I was talking about like the Gay Straight Alliance in my school and just like the wide eyes and like these people are going into public education, and so they're going to deal with all sorts of students. And I think some of them go in also having an idea that they're going to go in back to a school just like the one they went into, and that's what they want to do, and they don't really want to expand. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that are trying to push in that direction. But
I think we have a question over here.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'm a student at IUPUI in the transition teaching program right now. I'm going through mentoring semester at CFI 84, which is located primarily in Broderville. So the population is about 85% white at that particular school. But something that was interesting was when I look back about 9 years, in 2006 or 7, it was about 55% African American. And I talked to one of the teachers who have been there from the beginning. They said, well, they redrew the zoning like the year later, and they put the new school in at 27, I think they added, and they put all the black students who were going to CFI initially started going to 27 in the other IPS schools, and then it progressively got less diverse. And I heard like stories about how the neighbors didn't like the students coming initially to that school, and it was I'm researching it right now, but I am going through the classes. One of them is diversity in education or multiculturalism, and it helps a lot with like preparing your mindset for going into it, or at least the class I'm in with like 25 student teachers, you know, get a chance to, like they have to read materials and then talk about it in class about what they learned. And having a professor that is very liberal-minded and is a Latina American professor as well. And we talk about racism like every other day in that class. And I think it's brought up some discussions that have gotten a little tense in the class between certain classmates. And I think it helps because, you know, a lot of people have been posting and saying they had never thought about certain things before they were, you know, reading our material. And I do believe that just, you know, talking about something that you've never had to talk about before in the open and, you know, relating it to students that are kids that are going to be younger than you and how you're going to relate to them is, you know, it's a good step in the right direction.
You make a point about when he was
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I took that class.
Yeah.
It was one of my first classes inside of cohort 2 by intentional design to find out from educators who were trying to enter in some non-traditional, some traditional. It was an undergrad class or graduate class, master's, and I was the only PhD student. But I can speak to that because it was a rich experience. But it's taken me 3 years to process and to get here to be able to talk about it. And these were the thoughts. There's a statement that's here that's come listening to the group. And this is the idea. It's identity resourcing. How we become who we are, and we all expressed who we were in a circle. That identity resourcing in the place of institutional inequity formation. That sometimes this stuff is kind of placed in our knapsack, Peggy McIntosh, and this little knapsack. It's one of the first things we read, but I didn't understand that math before. I didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't want to see it, that there was stuff inside of me that either I was going to keep putting stuff in the knapsack or I was going to take the time to pull out the things that I had bias in. Someone mentioned bias, right? They mentioned bias. I have personal biases, and that this is just a viewpoint. I think that this is the place where microaggressions exist because you get credentialed, you get certified, and there's certain things that you have to put up with that are either against your core values and causing you conflicting thoughts, but I need to get that degree, I need to get that credentialing, and then it's reproduced in you and you put it back into the children. It's protected by systems, it's insulated by systems, it's expressed by systems. I think every professional that's inside institutions can speak to that. And it maintains status quos of cultures. And that gets at this issue of inequity, equity, equality, and what that means. So I just want to say, no, the conversation is extremely rich here. It's like, bam, it's all in here, and watching this unfold over 4 cohorts. That now finally these things are starting to be talked about. They're not inside papers.
Yeah, I think they are being talked about. I just don't know if it's being heard. I mean, I think about the person I report to, Dr. Colin Machado. She's been talking about this for a long time. So I think and she's been talked about in a circle. And her career has suffered as a result of the fact that it's being talked about. And I think those are some other things that we need to be concerned about. But I don't want to get too far away from Ms. Paulette's question because I think we really need to deal with that. She wants to know, how do we deal? What's going on with the teacher in the classroom who has 400 kids cramped in her room, and how do I deal with that? Yes.
I want to go to the statement that Sister made there, that if a child is not learning, and they got all of the no deficiencies, they're in your class, and they're not learning, well, that's because you ain't teaching. If a child does not learn the way that you teach, then you must teach the way that the child learns. Second of all, some white women, teachers, period, might think that they want to go into the classroom and save the world. Some go into to destroy. Two personal experiences. In high school, I was counseled not to take the SAT my junior year. I take it my senior year. Then when I go to college, I find out that I'm not eligible for certain grants because I didn't take the SA2, what they call it, the pre-SAT.
Yes.
My counselor told me, you're smart. And I some kind of road. I wasn't, I done my own thing. You understand? I wasn't a typical student. I done my own thing. And they didn't like me doing my own thing, but as far as academics, I was pretty sound. And so they counseled me And now, after I get to the college level, I find out, oh boy, they was trying to destroy me. Because they counseled me that I didn't need to take the SAT at the junior level, which caused me not to be eligible to take benefit of things that I could have took if I did. Second experience. When I go to the college level, the head of the department at the time counseled me. Oh, I see that you got straight A's in math. Yeah. Oh, well, you don't need to take this class because it's all about math, because you're pretty good with math. Oh, okay. I go all the way through the curriculum when it gets time to graduate. And they say, you didn't take this class? You can't graduate, you gotta take this class. So here, I gotta go back to a one-on-one class. And all the way I'm going through the curriculum, and that was electrical engineering technology. And I'm wondering why I don't know how to use the instruments to take the measurements that you have in order to get the information to. And I found out that this class is the class to teach you how to use the ohm meter, the voltmeter, the oscilloscope. And so here it is again. They weren't trying to save the world. They was trying to make sure that I didn't get to play a part in the world. So I'm saying that I'm about sure that it just didn't happen to me. So there is I don't know if it's a microaggression, but there are people that are consciously within the school system that's trying to destroy that black mind, so that when it comes time to compete with that white mind, there's no competition. So I just wanted to share that to say that those subtle racisms, them subtle things that are happening that causes folks who can do the work, but you can't do the work if you're not prepared to do the work. And Lord knows if I didn't have my attitude that I wasn't gonna let them beat me, I probably would have fell by the wayside. Cause I'm academically sound. I don't believe you can put it in front of me and I can't do it.
Yeah. But what do we do to those young African American men that don't have that kind of tenacity? I mean, how do we support them and the African American women? I mean, the numbers. I spotted off the numbers at IUPUI for African American men, but with the women, they were just as dismal. And I think that, I mean, how, as a community, because we're here because we're trying to get back to our specific communities. No matter where we live, either on the inside or the outside of 465, we need not allow this room to just serve as a bannering room where we just kind of spout off stuff. But we need to walk away from here with some ideas about what we can do to go back to our community and share some things.
One thing I want to do to speak to something you said, I think it's important to point out the number of people who are going into education overall as a major is declining. So they're actually having meetings about it to try to determine why students are not choosing education as a major. And the number of minorities, particularly Black men, who are becoming educators through K through 12, very small. And so the majority of people who are actually seeking the opportunity to teach our children are white females. That's the reality of it. So there's no real way to sugarcoat that. But I think it's important to note, because ultimately a lot of people are being deterred from the system for a variety of reasons, including how convoluted it is. But I also think that speaks to what you're saying, in that sometimes they're being deterred when they're in the 5th grade. Sometimes they're being deterred when they're in high school and they say, I love to be a teacher, and the teacher looks at them and may be well-meaning, but says, don't do that. So oftentimes that seed gets planted And then when I see them, you then get that subtle, well, they told me I should major in general studies. I'm a program chair of general studies. I think it's a fantastic degree. However, when I look at the students, what they bring to the table, and I will tell them, no, we're going to come up with a plan and this is the path you need to take. And when you talk about empowering students, many times students are so used to someone else giving them the information. Because in high school, they sat down with the guidance counselor and the guidance counselor perhaps didn't say, I'm going to put you in charge of your journey. I'm just going to tell you what to take and you're going to nod, because we've been doing it for a long time. Throughout history, we've been nodding and doing what we've been told to do. So we follow along. And then you discover that you're missing something when you get to college and you don't have the math foundation, because nobody told you at the high school level that you needed it, or that your writing is not where it needs to be, or you don't know that APA actually stands for a writing technique and requirements versus APA. You don't, because I hear these things and I will say to students, someone did you a disservice because they didn't give it to you here. So then by the time you have people who may have a desire to teach, to be in the classroom, they've often been deterred and derailed and don't understand, oh, but wait, I gotta have math. I'm freaking out. Oh my goodness, math. Oh my God, why do I have to take that? But that seed about the negativity about math and science was planted long ago. So now we have a situation where students who have been better educated, students who have a stronger foundation are the ones who are going into education. And unfortunately, that group happens to be white females.
And lost black people.
Lost
Black people in education.
You said lost?
Lost black educators. It's just as bad, if not more damaging than white teachers.
When you control the schools, you control the future.
The challenge in education is just a microcosm of the challenge of being Black in America. So this discussion about oppression is a discussion that Black folks at all ends of the economic scales have every day. So yes, we should be, even though we're focusing here on the question of education, it's really about race and white supremacy in America, where we are. Whether you're smart, whether you're dumb, whether you get it right, whether you get it wrong, you still gonna go out in the world and be dealing with the issue of oppression and being Black in America. That's a painful, difficult thing to get up every day and look at and say, oh, I got to go out here again tomorrow and take that ass kicking. Whether I got my GED or my PhD, that ass kicking is coming every day. So that's the reality where we find ourselves. Now, the issue of Black people education, that's tied to money. There's more white women in education because there ain't no money in education. So Black folks that are talented, quote unquote, they're not looking to go teach because there ain't no money in teaching. And why do we go to school? We don't go to school to contribute back to our communities. We go to school to get out of our communities. And we do that by going to find high-paying jobs in other places, mainly corporate America. Corporate America is not serving our community. They're part of the fundamental reason why our educational systems are disenfranchised against charter schools. So part of what we have to try to do, I think, is create critical thinkers within the community. So this is about critical thinking.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So you guys, in some way, are the form of resistance, because you made a decision to go inside and try to bring about change. And so then you find places to create and bring about that change and everything. So yeah, you talk about Dr. McCarthy, of course, she's going to be penalized. Why wouldn't she be?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Dr. Chong, you got a point?
I wanted to respond to the idea of what the teachers, what's going on with that. And this topic of white supremacy and privilege and all that has been a major topic of late. I would say there were many of us who came to the university in IUPUI already doing that, like Dr. Mercado and I, and doing that. And it was very tense because if there's only a few of us doing it,
everybody's looking around at you like, I'm going to my normal classes because you're really out there, right? So then over time, what happened is we've become a school of education that has not only many more Black faculty, but many more critical faculty in general. And faculty meetings of all sorts, we devote time to talking about white supremacy. So everybody who's there has to talk about it and bring up the topic of it. So we know that that's a place to start in order to also make sure there's a more pervasive message that's taught in the classrooms, whether it's in counselor education, teacher education, higher education. There's many different areas of that. We're working on it. We're still very much working on it. It feels like a better place than it was when I first came because there are more people doing it. And also the idea too of we talk about this. You heard. I know that you all as students have heard of white fragility. Yeah. Okay. The idea that when these topics are brought up, it's going to bring up a lot of tension and discomfort, and that's okay. Part of the process of transformation is to create discomfort, to realize that you mentioned Brownsburg not being very diverse. It was for a reason that it wasn't diverse. It wasn't just that it was that way. We want to make sure to speak the truth about these issues and be very clear about why those things were occurring and to address them, confront them, rather than to not confront them.
Ms. Ali?
Well, back to tracking. To me, tracking isn't necessarily a bad thing because if a student comes in to say kindergarten, first grade, and we say we have track 1, which is really good, track 2, which is kind of good, and track 3 that's no good. Okay, if you're in the no good track number 3, then the resources should be put into that student to bring them up to track 1. But the way elementary school is designed in IBS, as far as I can see, that doesn't happen because it's too late to be talking about college if you don't get them started in kindergarten or first grade. So if they don't get the resources that they need to come up to the A group in group number 1 in elementary school in first grade, then they're never going to be able to get to college. So until the resources are put into elementary education that should be there, nothing's going to change. I mean, it's just going to get worse. I mean, that's not going to get better.
Now we'll come back with you. I'll keep your thought if you can. But I think what you were saying kind of hones in on what Imhotep was saying and Dr. Chalmers was saying, and that is this whole issue of developing a mindset of being critical thinkers. I don't know if anything is going to be given to us. I mean, I think you talk about until they give us this, until they give us that. I just don't know if that's going to happen. And I think the thinking that's beginning to develop in the room, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're going to have to not only just teach our children to be critical thinkers, but we're going to have to teach our community to be critical thinkers, and understanding that, look, when you are in the IPS school system, we have to tell the parents. My wife is a teacher, and so she talks. I mean, I have to hear this every day. Just the constant complaining about the administration and their mindset. But I applaud her because she's trying. She calls the parents of these young folks to help them to understand that the things that they need to know so that they won't be tracked incorrectly in these school systems. But the school systems are not going to fix that. I really do think that it's something that we as a community are going to have to, and from all facets, are going to really have to address and correct, because I don't think anyone's going to give us anything. I think our community is going to really have to step up and do that. And I realized that this past year, when I began to learn that, and it blew my mind, and I know it's probably something everyone on the planet except me knew, which was, I think about being a Black man all the time. Right. It is something that's always on my mind. But I realized that when the white folks in our program shared that they hardly ever think about being white. It's not even an issue for them. So if it's something that they don't even talk about, clearly they're not going to be concerned about the issues of race at a level that I'm going to be concerned. So in that sense, I think it's important that we recognize that the only people that are going to truly be able to address this properly and bring it to the forefront is us. So anyway, Glenn, I know your hands are full right now. I hope you didn't lose your thought on that.
I did not.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I guess first off, let me say that I'm getting ready to jump in the middle and instantly become the located kind of room. So that's getting ready to happen. And the reason why I'm going to do that,
The children are protected.
don't throw too many things at me. Okay. Oh, I knew it was going to happen. Be careful with the water. Okay. I guess when you talk about, you say, how does the community support Black men, or how does the community support Black women, or how does the community support Asian men, Asian women, whatever the case might be, right? I think, and here's the statement right here. I think first we have to ask ourselves that first order critical thinking question: why do I need education? Right? And education has been around a good 100 years anyway, so we can throw it away, and we'll throw it away, right? So you know, the question I ask myself is, as I think about education, specifically in the Black community, we were shut out of mainstream education in 1950. So, 65 years we've been allowed in the mainstream education. At that point, when I think about how we got in with both feet real quick. It wasn't just about getting an education so I can go and provide for my family. It was, I got to get a job because my God, not a job, I got to get education because my God, Martin King went all the way to graduate school and got a PhD. My kid's going to follow Martin King's path. He's going to get a PhD too. We're all in for all 30 years of high school. 30 years of school, period. And we jump in based on that. We jump in based upon this corporate America thing, saying, I got to get a master's degree or I got to get a degree so I can go work for somebody else my whole life. And quite frankly, our community is telling us, no, that's not what the community needs. The community needs you guys to stay here in the community and build an economic platform for us so we can have some investment in our community. The community is saying, well, wait a minute, I need you to be able to provide jobs for these Black men so our education, so our unemployment rate isn't twice the national average, right? So I think the community is saying something very different than what we're actually telling those people who are seeking an education we want. I think that the first order question in most families needs to be not how are we going to pay for our kids to get their bachelor's degree or their master's degree. The first order question is, how do we assess, how do we match up our child's abilities with a need in the community so that they can support each other? My child might not go to college because they want to own a retail shop. And quite frankly, entrepreneurship isn't taught in colleges anyway. So why go there and invest and get that debt when you can go work under somebody who hopefully has a shop in the community right now and learn how to do that to open up your own thing? I think those first order questions aren't asked enough. We're simply jumping into the education mainstream and going along for the ride. So I think when we talk about the community and how we can support, I think we need to have community be critical enough to be asking our young men and women coming up, but what is it that you want to do? What is it that makes sense to your abilities and how you can support our community and stay here and build a good life for yourself? And don't worry about the $80,000 a year job. Don't worry about the $130,000 a year job. Because the community is going to be here to support you as well as you support us. I think until we get there and ask those questions, we are always going to set up a large majority of our children to fail.
So Glenn he asked a great question, and we actually had this discussion in class, what was it, last week, y'all? Did we have a debate about this? So what do y'all think? What do y'all think about Glenn's flipping the script? Let's go here, let's put that out.
Well, I'm attending Butler University right now. It's a tremendously, expensive school to attend if you don't have scholarship, and a lot of people are still paying it. But they really get you going and coming with the expenses that they charge you. And I think that a lot of people are going. But that's just not a sustainable way to run a business, which is what education is at this point. And pretty soon, people are going to realize that the reward you get from paying for a college education don't counterbalance the amount of time that you're going to have to spend, paying it back. And furthermore, they don't really train you in practical skills always. Sometimes they do in some ways, but I know a lot of people that I know are really worried they're going to get out of college and they're going to be in for a nasty surprise that they're, gonna know a whole lot of stuff about, maybe, sociology or something like that, and they're not gonna know how to live. And I already have, friends that have opted right out of high school. I have a friend who's working at the Delaware IndyCar factory in Speedway, and he's worked really hard and he gets salary there, and he said, why am I gonna go to college? I could, he could try to, he's a smart fellow, but he just figures the work experience is also valuable. So I think that tide is kind of starting to change.
Yeah, and I agree. But I think one of the things that I think that was part of the thing that Glenn was saying, but that's really what Glenn is saying is that's really more of a, what you were talking about, more of a mainstream way of thinking that doesn't necessarily address the issues of the African American community. So I think that's what he's kind of getting at. As far as,
as far as the student-teacher relationships by race, I think that a lot of that stems from, where the teachers come from in a way. And we haven't talked a whole lot about that, but when teachers are trained to deal with a very diverse, group of people, they aren't really trained well, I don't think, in a lot of ways. If somebody speaks well and writes well, they'll often be told, oh well, you should be an English major, and that's not the whole story. And being able to teach English at a high level. If somebody likes to walk in the woods, they might be told, you should be an ecologist. That's not the whole, certainly not the whole story there. And so there's just kind of this repeating cycle of teachers looking for, something that might hint at, somebody having an aptitude for something, but they never really ask the question of the student, what are you good at? What are you good at? Yeah, and I think that's what Glenn is. What do you,
Well, no, I think my question is even different from that question. My question is more, why do I need, okay, so
education.
So exactly, right? Because if my life plan is to go and provide a good life for my family and contribute back to my community in ways that make my community sustainable, how is education going to make that real for me? Right? That's the question.
See, I think that I would hone in on that question a little more. I think that I would ask the question, why do I need that education?
Exactly.
Okay. I think we can agree on what that entails, right?
But let me push it just a little bit, and I might be the most hated guy. Let me push it just a little bit, and we're going to have to go because her mother is caregiver is going to have to leave. But I'm going to say this, and then we're probably going to.
So you're going to become the most hated
that critical thinking. You understand what I'm saying? And the question, which I think is a pertinent question, is why do we need that education? Okay, and then even more critical thought, why would we think that people who don't teach us right, or treat us right, would teach us right? Okay, and then even more critical, this system has a history of enslaving us. Why would we think that we can send our children to this system and they would teach us not to be enslaved? So I'm saying, and to hold it in, if we are going to mature, because right now we're looking for other people to do things for us that we ought to be doing for ourselves. Brother said it. You can't expect this system to do something for us. And as you get older, when you're young, you expect people to feed you and give you clothes, provide shelter. But as you get older, people look for you to do that for yourself. The question becomes for us as a people, when are we going to grow up? When are we going to mature? When are we going to quit looking for other people to do that, which we ought to be doing for ourselves? We should be educating our kids.
Yes.
We should be protecting our kids. We should be police in our community. And when you're talking about them young black males, if they are talking to some old black males, there's some respect. I'm gonna say this, and this is great. Y'all know this guy. He's a comedian, Sinbad. Now I'm listening to him, and he's talking about. He says, man, these ages here, you can tell that these youngsters didn't grow up with a strong black man in the house. He says, because they don't know when to quit. He says, if a strong black man was in the house, you knew that you don't go too far. I mean, you can go up to this line, but if you go up past this line, that strong black male is going to put you in check. He said, I got disrespected every day. They went in my drawers in the room, went looked up under my bed. When I went to close the door, they opened it without knocking on it. And I said, yes, sir. Because I knew that I didn't want to have the repercussions if I bucked. It's time for us to grow up. And when you're talking about the education that we need to determine what that education is. When it comes time for us where we fit into society, we need to determine that for ourselves. We got to quit looking for other people to tell us what to do when we need to be telling ourselves what to do. It's just time to grow up.
And then we come back to you, bro.
Well, enslaved Africans.
Get Sean.
Enslaved Africans taught themselves to read and write.
That's right.
So the idea,
Enslaved Africans taught themselves to read and write.
so the idea of being educated was not something that we acquired when we acquired quote unquote access to the digital system. So as Africans, we came here with a sense of humanity and culture, and we've done really an amazing job trying to maintain that in spite of the kind of oppression that we have found ourselves under. So that would be one nuance about the comments that I would say is different, that we have always embraced being educated and learn. There's nothing else for the purpose of survival and trying to move forward. That's one thing I want to say. The other is that that we should utilize any and every tool available to improve the quality of our lives. But again, so that could be getting your PhD. That could be going to learn how to iron your clothes. So there should be no aspect of intellectual and vocational acquisition that we should limit or say we shouldn't do. But it is, again, as Moses said and others, it is about intentionality and purpose. And so some of that, I think, post the so-called segregated period, is we have to return to some aspect of what is our intentionality and purpose of skill acquisition. Now, the two other pieces I'll say under quiet. I grew up in the community. My mother raised me, but it was a community held of men in the community. So there were other fathers in the community, and some good, some bad, and there was a community effort to assist in raising children. We had a Boy Scout leader. My mother made sure I went and was in. I hated it. I mean, I really hated having to go to the Boy Scouts.
What the shorts?
Oh, all of it, I mean, the whole thing was just, you wanted that, son. You climb on down there. And that was a father who lived in the community. So some of that has been displaced by access, that particular, and now out of that access, a minority aspect of our population has had opportunity. So that whole race class phenomenon has now had a larger impact on our communities in ways that we probably couldn't imagine. Lastly, the global economy is impacting all aspects of society, including the educational process, even more so, which is now about creating more technicians, not critical thinkers, but more technicians to try to maintain a global economy. And forgive me, Ms. Fair, for my doom and gloom here, that is failing. It's failing at a global level, climate collapse, economic collapse. And so there's some major systemic challenges taking place at the global level that's impacting all of our lives, black, white, red, yellow, poor, and rich. So as we look at what's next, I think we have to begin to also include the idea of what are these global system structures that are making all of our abilities to stay on the planet challenging at best. So that would be my last remark there. Mr. Fair, I know you're going to come in and paint the more positive aspect of that.
I'm just waiting my turn.
It's yours.
So we're gonna let the brother go, and I think Sherman has a few words. Ms. Pollard will come back.
So the thoughts that have been shared provoke thoughts, always these thoughts. And the thought that comes to mind is this, okay? What do I want to be a professional in and realize that I'm going to be capitalized in that resource as a professional? And then, what am I going to be an amateur in? Amateur sounds nasty, doesn't it?
It sounds like avocation is the nurse.
Well, help me out.
Vocation, but avocation is the wonderful thing. My husband did those charts. He was a chemist, but he was a historian by avocation. But the charts were for the community. It was by avocation. It was every day after he came home. When he was out on the road, he was carried those books around with him. So when you say, as an amateur, I think avocation, the passion of the heart, comes back into the community. I'm a med tech. I'm here every day as the program director, which supports the program. But I think it's an either or. I don't either. I think it's an and. It's an either and. I mean, please. So get your people. I mean, you know how kids used to come home and people would tell them, don't be an educated fool. Just because they went off to get a PhD. What's wrong with that? And so in education, I pay my taxes. I think poor people pay more. Poor people pay more because you don't have enough money to pay your light bill, so you have to pay the disconnect charge because they come out to your house. Poor people don't have enough money, and so you have to roll on your brakes until the rotors go bad. We pay more. Pay my taxes. Pay that. Raise the taxes on your house. You got to pay your mortgage, and then they almost take the house away from you because of the taxes. We pay more by percent. No, those schools that we pay for, no, they can't just keep going like that and we say, okay. So yes, let's talk about the educational system being responsible to the community. What's good for those black urban kids who come to school without socialization schools will be even good for white kids who go to suburban schools who already get individual education plans. Because they're not just going to get sent home because they are acting in school. So I'm just saying, you're right. Kids, young people come and they're not prepared. Trying to sensitize them to getting prepared. So then, we go backwards to the senior high school, in your program. Sherman, it's a wonderful program because you're working with those young people. But then, let's go back. So then it's back about community. If the parents don't never come, they just don't come. But the teachers know the programs that they put in the schools. I say, we pay taxes, we deserve to push to get after our legislators. Hey, what are you doing for kids in general? Black Lives Matter. Now, all those kids matter, but if you do it for black kids, then it's gonna help everybody. So that's what I mean about it's and to encourage children, don't get your education so you can make $1 billion. That's not the issue. The issue is how can you help the community that's kept you alive so long. to give them passion about it.
We're gonna go to Sherman, and then we need to come back over.
Oh, I'm sorry, Betty,
That's my fault. That's all my fault.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah, okay, so listen, hey, so listen up. We wanna make sure we hear, because I wanna learn from everyone, not just a few people, I wanna learn from everyone. So we're gonna go to this brother, we're gonna come back to Sherman, and I think we have 2 hands over here.
Great.
Is that okay?
And,
All right,
I got one up here.
okay, I got you, we got you.
I'll be very succinct. The amateur was laid there so it could get stopped. Avocation is a wonderful way of learning and giving of your time, talent, and no treasure in the capital system.
No treasure.
No treasure, but put your time in, and this was the idea that came. Wow. Counsel, volitional inventories of what you've learned. Go somewhere, right, and make community networks. Go put your time in and go and share what you've learned as a professional. That's all.
Sherman?
Just want to let you guys know this, that I'm most mad at just house Negroes. And it's been since, you talked about 1950 D6. I mean, what other group of people in the history of mankind has fought, begged, cried, pleaded for another group of people to educate their kids? So I totally agree with you, where the way the education system is now, it's crazy. It's crazy, but Dr. W. Du Bois said that the goal of education should be to create a critical mass that leads the masses away from destruction and death. And we're not doing that at all in education. I mean, but if the goal is primitive accumulation, I mean, that's assimilation. That's the goal of a capitalistic goal. And if you're at the bottom of that food chain, and you can continue supporting it, then that's crazy. That's crazy. When you talk about critical thinkers, I mean, and what my goal of research is in leadership and developing young African male leaders, and it's not about being successful and getting the money, the car, the clothes, to quote Drake. All right, thank you. Nobody's young enough to feel me on that? All right. Oh, yeah. You know, but to come back and ameliorate a community. And so education, in my opinion, is very, 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 it's a necessity, but it's about creating a critical mass that's going to lead people away from destruction and death, the works that they own and other kinds.
Okay, let's come back over here.
I was just going to say, from the perspective of teaching, I taught at George Washington for like 7 years, and I was there, and I had 11th grade students, and through being trained in just emphasizing social justice and the idea that, again, you're not coming in as that savior, you're coming in to get them to become critical thinkers and talk about the value of their own community and how they can build that up their own community. And what I'm saying is that idea of stereotype threat, by the time I get to them, and they're like in 11th or 12th grade, I see the hopelessness when they're talking about like trying to, at that age, because it doesn't happen younger, and so maybe that's why it's so important to start young, talking about race in the classroom and talking about the imbalance and why it's important. But I see these students who, and I see it all the time when I say I taught an IPS, the stereotype that people have about them and how ingrained it gets in their own, like they internalize this oppression. And so when you're trying to get them to go back and help their community, by that age, they're like, I want to get the hell out of here because nobody thinks I'm good. I don't want to be associated with this community because everybody looks at us like we're not worth it. And so my question is like, how do we flip that when so much of society has this like, ingrained stereotype of these students that ends up they ingrain in themselves and then they don't want to come back to their community. And at that age, how do you get them to flip that mindset when they're so almost about to graduate and they just want to get out of there and make the money and get away from whatever people have been associated with them negatively, because our culture does that to them. So I don't know. I was just
so here we are as a community of we have a group of African Americans in this room, and here we have a white teacher who's concerned about some of the things that we talked about. What are the tools that we can give her?
And do I have the power to do that? Can I sit there and say, you can help yourselves as a white woman? There's only so far I can go as being a white woman, and so that's why I think we need more people of color in education, because I only have so much power.
But until then, we're gonna give you some tools.
Well, exactly.
So what are the tools that we give this young woman knowing what we know about our culture that can support her, while at the same time, we still try to.
And it not looking like me coming in being like, I'm gonna help you. You don't want
You
that.
stayed there for 7 years, I don't think it's looking. Go ahead, bro.
I'm gonna take everybody on kind of a journey.
Well, first, before you go take us on the journey, let's answer the sister's question, because I don't know.
Oh, well, it's relative.
It's relative to that, okay.
All right. You have a young child who goes to school, and if he's African American, even if she's African American, a lot of times it's how well can you dance, how well can you play a sport, and then a lot of times you just get carried into this mindset. Well, if I can do this well, or if I can act a certain way for a while, or actually very well, then they'll just push me through. And a lot of times this is what happens. So they get to my class, I teach IBYT, it's a 120 class for Black males. And now their mindset is, my whole life I was told I can dance or I can play a sport, but they didn't tell me to go get my education. A lot of people didn't tell me that. So now their mindset has to be broken to say, okay, now you can be somebody that can help your community. Now you can go back. And what I try to teach my students a lot of time is, you gotta be able to put all of this learning into a perspective that you can handle. So I tell my students a lot of time, you kind of gotta have a hustle mindset. So when you were in college, or excuse me, when you were in high school, when you played sports, all they did was hype you up all the time. Dude, you gotta play the sport. Man, you gotta make this touchdown or shoot this basket. Now when they get into college, man, I gotta succeed. I gotta get this A. I gotta get this B. I gotta get these great grades. I gotta do well on this test. So you have to change their mindset to think, now all of this hustle that I did, even when I was on the street, oh man, I was selling drugs, I was pushing, I was doing all this. Put it towards your education now. You know, you got to put it in a mindset and a focus to where it's something positive that they can do, and kind of go to the brother's question, of course, why do I need education? Because of this. We have to come back and give back to our communities, because if we don't do it, or if we don't tell our young people to get their education, nobody can come back and do it.
See, I don't think that's the point he was making.
Yeah, I just want to clean that up real fast. I'm trying to get off my head with this. Let's go ahead and clean this up. When I said why I need education, I meant what your brother said by that education. Because yes, we're going to educate you. Yes, we're going to teach you how to own a business to support the community. Yes, you're going to get that. But you're not going to need a BA from IUPUI to work for you. Right. You are not going to need you're not going to need to have shadow an internship over at Kraft to be able to come and work for my company. But if I have a company that's producing a product, I can show you how automation works. I can show you how production works, how to set up a production line. I can show you how to manage people. You don't need to go get an MBA from IU down in Bloomington. I can show you that. All that can really be OJT. Right? So I can give you those skills. And you don't need to worry about that. The community is here to support you for that. Then how are you going to support the community? So I'm not saying no education. I'm more saying that education.
Yeah. Well, and here's another example. I used to be an academic advisor. I say this all the time. I know you're tired of hearing me say it. But I learned a lot doing that. But there would be young African American men that would come into my office and say, I want to major in business because I want to start my own business. And the first thing I would tell them after that is, you don't need to go to the Kelly School of Business if you already have the business acumen to start your own business. I think that's the mindset that he's coming from. But I don't want to run too far. One more.
I would like to speak to her.
Okay, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm going to address.
As it relates to young people, they just got to know you care.
Yeah, that's the
point. You don't have to be right. Just that you care about who they are. Now, earlier the point about excellence was raised. So that young man that was sitting over here before he left, this is his third journey into the Kepler Institute. He comes, he quits, he comes, he gets in trouble, he has to come back. After he gets back on the page, he tells his mother, let him get off the page. So then he leaves and he comes back with a third or fourth trip? Third trip. Now, every time she comes back, what do we say? Sure. Send him back in here. These are the rules. He's back this time because now truancy's in the game. So that means that's some other kinds of consequences. But we do the same thing. We're showing some love. And then we sit down in the room when they do the after school piece and we say, what's going on in school? And he says, oh, I'm doing good. And I said, well, you had a test. What did you get in chemistry? He said, you got a C-. So, of course, What did we do? We took his head off. We took his head off, even you don't see mine. So he don't like it, but he appreciates that we are saying, no, that is not acceptable. That is not a lot. That's no, you can't do that. And he's gonna go and probably still do it. And he'll probably end up with truants for other complications. It might be 10 years later before he gets it. But the key thing you have to do is just, they know that you're there for them, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's the most important piece of relating and working with young people.
Yeah.
Then the second thing that I differ on is dance, music, sports. Those are classrooms too.
Yes.
It's got everything in it. The math, they can have it, the sciences, teamwork, strategy. Now, of course, we're not trying to turn all our children into gladiators for corporate entertainment, which continues that challenge you said. But we still can utilize those talents to help develop the skill set. Almost all these youngsters are masters with metaphors. So then you have a responsibility to learn the language and culture of those communities. If it's Tupac, Malcolm, Harriet, with our camp this summer on STEM, we threw Carter G. Woodson in there. So, but we made it informative in a different way. So we're talking about what? Carter G. Woodson. He had a girlfriend. So one of the young ladies in the thing said, "Was she a white woman?" You know, so we would create an environment to allow those critical kinds of questions to come about it. I hate, unfortunately, I say, yeah, she was a white woman.
Hold on, Carter G. Woodson girlfriend was a white woman?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
No, I'm sorry. George Washington Carter.
Let's stay on track. Hey, we have a panelist that wants to make a point.
But we create an environment to allow those kinds of questions to raise up and be talked about safely, and that's what you do. Now, this butt whipping they're going to take when they get home, that's not new. You think that's new? They already know how they handling that. The schools are not designed for their education. That's what the failure is. They really not to being successful because they bored with that nonsense. And they also know at the end of the day, they give that piece of paper, what does it do? That's my.
Yeah, I do want
Sorry about that misquote, man. Could you take it? And then I take it. Don't put that out the live stream.
Okay, couple more things. We do want to make sure we respect the time.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. We want to make sure we respect the time. So we're gonna have another comment from the panel, and then the panel's gonna share a few last words before we're done. And then if you guys want to stay after, we can talk some more. That's fine as well. Okay.
You're doing a great job facilitating.
That's why we selected you. So to your question around how can we encourage students, I'll talk. How can we encourage students to go back to their community and help their community and not see their community as something that they want to move away from? My thought is they have to see it. They have to see it in action.
Right.
So if there are individuals that maybe look like them or have had similar experiences that you know and going back into that community, maybe bring them in to talk to the students and have them share their experiences. And it could be someone now, like today, or maybe do some research and look through some history and give them those examples as well. In addition to that, I would say maybe take them through a critical thinking exercise around this is what happens when you don't contribute to your community. These are the types of implications. Do you want to contribute to this end of the implications or this one? And maybe tell them it's okay to get their degree and to do other things outside of their community, but teach them how to go back and kind of balance that and go.
We would talk about it, we would sit in circles like this and talk about race and poverty and all these issues. and they would get really into it, but then when it came to their role in it and how they could become like the catalyst for change, they were so hopeless. They're like, oh, there's no point because we're not ever gonna be able to do that. And so that's where I was like, when I get stuck, it was like I was getting the conversation going, we had really great conversations, but then for the most part, it was like, well, and so maybe that's that piece of like being a white woman, bringing in somebody else who like looks like them, who is from their community that's done it, as opposed to just saying it's done.
That helps in
Or
part.
even help them identify ways that maybe they've done it, that they don't realize.
Yeah.
Right. Or our community service.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we have a lot of, I'm speaking strictly Indianapolis, speaking Indiana, speaking community college level. We do have a lot of African Americans who are going to Ivy Tech earning degrees. But to speak to a little bit about what Imhotep said, they are not seeking degrees that will end up in high-paying jobs. That's the reality. The majority of African American students that I see are seeking degrees in human services because we want to save people, because we caretakers, because we got to fix it. Liberal arts, general studies, they're not going into biotechnology, they're not going into engineering, they're not going into the areas that could lead to, or everybody wants a business degree because they want to start a business. That's another, I want to go to Kelley School of Business, but I have a 1.8 GPA, okay? So ultimately laying that foundation at K through 12 about realistic options and expectations for college, but also helping students to speak the language of higher education because they don't know it. It is a language. I was told by a mentor that you don't speak the language because I almost left IU Bloomington. I didn't feel like I fit in. I was like, people are just different and they double talk and they don't say what they mean. And I don't understand what they're talking about. And they said, because you don't speak the language. So you need to understand what language they're speaking. They're speaking the language of middle class, of upper class. You need to understand that a foundation was laid for them when they started in kindergarten. So they had a language that prepared them to get to here. And a lot of students that I encounter don't have that foundation. They don't have that language. So they don't understand things like, you know, I don't have to have an associate degree because if you want to do HVAC, that doesn't require an associate degree. You can get a technical certificate and keep it moving. You know, if you want to work on cars, you don't have to have a bachelor's degree to do that. So guiding people with realistic expectations, I think is important because I do agree with you. Sometimes people go get all the way up, I got a master's degree in education. Woohoo! What are you gonna do with that? Oh no. I'm gonna work in education. Master's in education has become a generic degree because so many people get it and then they try to get a job and they tell them, sorry, your degree isn't specialized. So I think it's important to give people that information. And when I talk to students, sometimes I ask them, why are you going into human services? My classes when I taught human services courses were full of African American students, particularly female, who wanted to save people but had not been introduced to other options. Nobody told them everything else that they could do that's involved with helping people. So I do think it's important when we say educate, it doesn't necessarily come from a book. Sometimes you teach people practical, real world experiences. I will charge students what I want you to go out and do this. I need you to go out and meet with this person. I need you to go out and do this, and then you come back and tell me what you think. Because ultimately you're unrealistic in your expectations. And you want to be an RN, but you don't have a science foundation. I need you to strengthen your foundation so that you can get to here. And that's the part that's not happening. So at the K through 12 level, it's not happening. They're not telling them to take the chemistry, to take the physics. They're not telling them that. So then they get to Ivy Tech and they may make a very great nurse, but they can't get through anatomy. They don't have study skills. They don't have the foundation because they weren't taught it at this level. And I think where we fail students at the college level, particularly in the community college setting, is we don't own that and then help them get those skills to prepare them to go into those what we call harder fields. where they see themselves being, but they don't have the foundation to get there. So I think that would be my parting words, is ultimately you having the desire is the first step. So I applaud you for that. The fact that you have the desire is fantastic, and that you have the passion for it. And then sometimes telling students stuff they don't want to hear.
Right.
Yes, you want to do this. That I need you to take chemistry. You're in 11th grade, you haven't taken chemistry. You want to be a doctor. You took one science class in the 9th grade. That's not enough. You need to take more math, because it will better prepare you for college, for the journey you say you want to take. I make students own their journey. Own the journey you say you want, and let's create the path for you to get there, whatever that journey looks like.
Sherman, just part.
Well, hold on. Just to add to what Sherry said, I agree that we have to be direct and open and honest with our students, with our children in general, around what's necessary in order to achieve their goals. I also agree that there isn't enough awareness around all the opportunities that exist. I mean, we tend to focus on, you can be a doctor, attorney, pastor, postman, whatever, fireman, and that's it. But there are so many different careers and career fields. What I'm struggling with a little bit is kind of telling them you go do it. And I understand what you're saying, but I also believe that we need to have stronger villages and advocates for our children, because when we're telling them, go take this, their teachers, their administration, their principals aren't recognizing that they have the ability. When they say, I want to do this, I know the answer, call on me, etc. So we have to find a way to be more supportive, if not proactive, in making sure that they have those opportunities to do those things. So as well as that their schools are resourced with those opportunities so that they can pursue them. So when you talk about chemistry,
I'm talking about college level. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with the K through 12,
by the time they're 11th, 12th grade,
They weren't talking at the beginning.
But speaking to what she said about what can she do. So if the student tells her that I have a dream, or okay, you want me to open up about my vision for myself, you want me to begin to see it. So when they reveal it to her, what's she gonna say? So, okay, my real dream is that I wanna work for NASA. Like, okay, bam, what you gonna do with that? So then here's a realistic conversation. How's your science? How's your math? I want you to go look this up. I want you to see. I have students look up job descriptions. We have high school students that take college courses, but sometimes you have to get them to be able to dream. And if they share with you, like, I don't think it's realistic, but I would love to do this. The reality is you can do it, but here's the foundation you need in place to make sure it happens. And I think that's where we fall short, is because I agree with you, the schools aren't doing it.
They will be in like 11th or 12th grade, and by then when they hear the actuality, then that defeat sinks in to a point where it's damaging to them.
And
At
when
that point,
and when they get to me,
they're too far gone, they feel like it, and you try to flip it like it's not too late. I mean, there's tons of people that turn it around. But when they hear that like they were cheated, I think it's that idea, like you said, like I was cheated out of my education. And then it's like, why would you want to be a part of a system that like is cheating you the whole time?
And then they get to me and they're upset. They're upset because they discover, why am I in all pre-college level courses and I got a high school diploma? And a lot of times they're angry. How do I not know how to write a paper, but I walked across the stage with a cap and gown on? And then sometimes you embrace them, like you said, do more nurturing, because you're gonna have to start here, but you can still make it here. But let's put in tutoring. Here's this program I want you to join because they can support you. Here's this here that you can do to help strengthen your foundation, because somebody fell short in K through 12 and didn't give you what you need.
The nurturing part is also a catch-22, right? Because if I literally graduated high school and I got to take pre-college courses for 18 months before I take college level courses, then I'm not getting my degree until at the best 6 years after I started. And then when I go to my job interview for my internship or for my first employer, then I say, well, why did it take 6 years for you to graduate? And then that's going to make me a second tier candidate versus a first tier candidate for the job. And boom, I'm still stuck.
Well, we should.
Right? So I mean, I'm not saying we don't need to nurture, but I'm saying that still comes at a huge price. if the community is not back there to say, okay, you know what, yes, that was your journey, but guess what? You can come do that business here in our community, because we don't care about how long it took you, as long as you got it.
Okay, all right. Again, I want to respect the time. Let's get Sherman his final word. And again, after we're done, we can continue our conversation. Sherman, a few words. Quickly.
I got a short story though. I grew up, my mom had when she was 16, and 3 sisters, so I got 3 aunts, all young, and young mom, and my grandma and grandfather. And young women drop a lot of things on the floor for some reason. Jewelry, earrings, buttons, and somehow they designated me as the guy that could find this stuff. Well, go get something here, find it and whatnot. You know, and I'm 43 years later. I'm colorblind. I can't even see. A lot of colors look the same. So on that green carpet that we grew up with, a lot of this stuff looked the same. But they made me believe that I was the guy that could find this stuff. And I think it happens with our kids in grades 1 through 5. They're going to learn to be inferior. They're going to be taught to be inferior, or they're going to be taught to be industrious. And we can implement all kinds of things to nurture and support, encourage them, and try to fix a sickness. If kids are being taught to feel that they're inferior. I do want to thank everybody for KI for letting us come out. I learned so much. I thank everybody for speaking. I mean, I learned so much every time you come here and sharing it. So I appreciate the time and opportunity.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time. Now we can go into DD.